Valhalla has officially sold out. What I'm going to do in today's video is do a post-drop analysis. What we're going to do is we're going to jump in and have a look at all the stats, the holders, profit takers, all the good stuff, so you can know where you sit if you're holding Valhalla, but also if you can know what to do if you want to move into the actual kind of project itself. What I'm also going to do is this is going to essentially be one take. It's 4:45 in the morning in New York right now. One take. This will be uploaded as soon as this finishes, so this is as close as you can get. So if you have a look at the time right now, 4:45, that's what it is. Okay, anyway, let's kick it off. When we actually jump onto OpenSea first up, the floor price at the moment is sitting just under that 0.6 ETH mark. So we've kind of got that 0.57 ETH, and it has had a stupid amount of volume, sort of 2,600, and then the supply of 9,000. Now it is a 10k supply and it minted at the 0.5. There were a list of variations, but the idea is the last 1,000 they're going to essentially be auctioning those off Q1 2023. Now what we're going to jump into and have a look is Nansen. Now Nansen is a great tool. I'll have links down below to Nansen. It's an affiliate link, so if you use it I get a kickback, but also up here I'll link a tutorial for Nansen, which is I use it all the time. I love it. It's a great tool and software. So anyway, when we have a look at Nansen, what we can see is, and it's like not surprising, the crazy amount of volume that we saw on the first day. Then we had the crazy amount of volume in this area here. Now, what I want to kind of point out here is the fact that it was sitting quite flat. As soon as a little bit of volume came in, ran up, dropped down because of these volume bits here, more volume, ran back up. The idea is that we're seeing absolutely no volume, if any volume. Now, any volume comes into the market, this thing should rip, should run, just because of what we've kind of seen in the past in this little section here. So I think that's very important. Having a look at the individual transactions and the buying points for lots of people, you do have the mint price here for a lot of people. There were these other mint prices here. Also, it is worth noting the fact that there are some NFTs that are locked up from a pre-sale event. Now, what we can notice here is that we've actually got a almost like this sort of 0.75, 0.8. There was a sale, but we've essentially hit a ceiling there, and what was a support at the 0.65 has actually broken down. Now what I think will happen is, because if we take this 0.65, and I know that we are currently sitting under that 0.6 mark, but I do think we are going to have somewhat of a resistance at this sort of 0.65 mark. So if there is a ramp and a little bit of volume, then that is something to keep an eye on, something to have a look at. The past kind of psychological barriers, it was bouncing off the 6.5s, then once it dropped below it, it was then underneath it. So the 0.65 is essentially that little magic point when it comes to the sort of, it was the support, now it may be the resistance. Now when we actually have a look at the balances, so these are the top balances, the people that own the most, which is a good idea to have a look at the whales in a project. What you can see here is that we've got 245, but we ignore that because this will not be an actual holder itself. But what we'll actually do is jump in and have a look. So we can see one holder here with 60, then we've got 56, 50. Let me just point it out here. So you've got, these are the holdings. So essentially the top holder has 60, and to round out the sort of top thing, and this is Nicky G, my boy Nicky G, big shout out Nicky G. He has been going crazy on it. He's actually holding 18 of them. Now what I think is a nice thing to do right now is to actually jump in and have a look and see what this top holder is actually holding himself, to see what projects he's in, to give you an idea of what kind of whale they are when it comes to the actual project itself. Now when we actually have a look at what they're holding, they are holding a lot of Valhallas, but they've got Neo Tokyo, they've got some weird stuff after that. So it looks like they're just kind of a Neo Tokyo holder. So that's what it kind of, it looks like they are in this project. I'll look at number 2. This is a thing that I like to do occasionally, is to have a look at what these top holders are, the whales in the project, you could say, just to see what they kind of do. And what they hold. We can see this whale here, they've got Valhalla, but then they've got Struct, Genesis Pass, They've got some Genesis collections, and then they've also got a bunch of little degen things here and there. But you can see that some of these top holders are sort of really big on it. It's not like we're seeing any crazy huge different whales within the project. And then Nicky G, he has also been going hard. He is the one that's sitting at 18. He's been going hard, buying a lot of Soul stuff recently. He also just sold his ape as well. Now what we're going to jump in right now is have a look at the profit leaderboard. Now this profit leaderboard, we can see here the top profit taker has taken 1.68 ETH in profits in this project. Now this is basically, they have bought to, sold to, because of where it initially ran up in that first little bump and that first little rip. So this was the person that sold the two and sold them off. Now what you will notice here is that you've got NFTs bought, and then you've also got NFTs sold. Now all of these people will be people that have essentially bought and sold a bunch. So there's not much you can take from the profit leaderboard so far, but it shows you that anyone that has done some sweeping has done some sweeping, and they haven't actually sold anything off yet, which I think is very important, because it shows you the people that are in this project have some conviction and they're willing to hold onto it for a little bit longer. Those that have sold and made those large profits are out, but that is kind of not really surprising. Now, when we get to the diamond hands, these are the people that have not sold a single thing. We can see that it capped out at 7,795, and we can see 7,755 people currently right now are essentially diamond hand holders that have not sold their holdings essentially. And then when we have a look at some of the related collections that other people own, now I think this is it's just a fun little thing to kind of know what other, the collections of the holders are actually holding, like the similar collections. You can see KPR verse that, so there are going to be some degen wallets here, but you're going Augmented Labs scientists, the ones that I'm pointing out, and then also KPR verse. And I think KPR verse, this is going to be very important, because we're going to touch on this shortly when we get to price predictions and where things can kind of run. So it's interesting to know that you've got essentially a big KPR verse kind of holder set, because it is very similar vibes. So that might give you an indication of where it could play out a little bit over the sort of coming days and weeks. And from what I understand, the sort of reveal date is around that 2-week mark, so it's not like it's going to reveal tomorrow and just absolutely rip off. Now what we're going to do is have a look at the top 5 buying addresses and where their entry points are. Now the reason that this is interesting is it shows you that they're buying up wherever they can, and with this most recent dip they've still kind of accumulated. So they're not waiting for a particular point, they're just moving in when they can to actually buy into the project. Now the main accumulation point is between is it around that 0.6 mark? So if you can get in below that 0.6 mark, and the floor currently is it below that 0.6 mark, you're going to be buying in at a cheaper price than those that have actually kind of bought into the project, and a slew of them you're going to be getting in at almost a 0.2 ETH discount of where they actually bought into the project. Now, smart money, I think this is a little bit more responsible to look at when you get to people that are moving in and out of projects. We can see a lot of them were minters at that sort of 0.5 mark, but there is a slew that have been sort of picking up underneath that 0.6 mark, but they also were getting under that 0.7 mark. So when it was hitting that resistance at that sort of 0.65, they were getting it to then rip up. And then when it was kind of hitting in that 0.6 mark, it looks like they saw anything under that 0.6 mark as a bargain to then scoop that up. And then obviously the price has tapered off here, but it shows you that they were actually almost, when you look at this chart, it almost looks like they knew that that 0.65 mark was a good place to buy in. So that's why they were buying in at those current points in time, because when I actually draw a line here, here's that 0.6 mark. You can see here that when it touched here, they bought in, ran back up. When it kind of hit here, bought in because it bounced again. When it went below, they're like, cool, definitely accumulation phase. That's what I kind of see, and that's what I take away from that. And then when it gets to the smart money selling, because smart money is always going to sell, they're going to flip, make that money. because they're degens just like us. They actually sold very high, and then it seems like it is tapering off at around that sort of 0.6 mark. Not too much you can take from there, but they honestly, it looks like the smart money was in it for that quick flip, and then afterwards they're like, okay, cool, let's dip it out, when they were in there for the other rounds of sales, or when they didn't see any more potential upside in the actual project itself. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually jump in and show you what the charts for KPR looks like, because I think that will give us an indication of the price predictions. Now, obviously this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but the idea is that having an indication of what something in a similar application niche, the application niche is, but then also where that ran, what those time frames and things are like, I think will give you an indication of what you could expect within the actual project itself, but then also give you a little bit of comfort if you do want to make some plays and some moves, because you've got a little bit more education and information. This is just about giving the education, the information, and my perspective when it comes down to the project. Now, this is KPR verse. Now, what they did is we can actually see that KPR had the initial run, then a few days later it ran up. Now this was the reveal day. Now what you'll notice is we almost had the same amount of run days up for a peak out, and then down here. Now this is over that 1 week period. So what I'm taking away from this is the fact that people will usually sell before reveal because they think that that's where they're going to get the best price. What this means is it means that when you look at something like Valhalla, I think people will be looking to sell before reveal because they think that that's where they're going to get the best price. Then the people go, hey, everyone's going to sell the day before to get the best price. Now we're back on Valhalla. So the idea is that people will then sell off a day before. So usually 2 or 3 days before, back to KPR, you will have this sell-off, and then once people realize that there's no more upside and they don't think that they're going to actually make anything, they'll start to sell off, and that's when you end up getting to the reveal, and then you get some crazy volume, and then usually 99% of the time it dips after reveal. So there is that. But what I want you to kind of take away here is the fact that there was a run up, and it did take a few days for it to kind of start hitting some legs, and then hit a price and peaked out. The mint price for KPR was a 0.25, and it ended up running essentially to an ETH. So you had that kind of 3 to 4x in it, which means that if you have a look at something like Valhalla, it looks like it could, I'm not saying it will, but it looks like it could max out at a 2 ETH mark. If it did get to a 2 ETH mark, you're almost hitting that 4x, which is almost what KPR was doing. So you could then be like, okay, cool, this is worth actually dipping out, which I think is a smart thing. So that 4 to 5x is almost like the top end. If you get that, that's almost an insta sell kind of point, because looking at what a very similar project has done, where it kind of minted off where it ran up to, and it's on a similar hype level of Valhalla. So that is my price prediction when it comes to Valhalla, where it can run up to. I do think that with this 2 week run up, I think we will see the peak of Valhalla come in at around the 1 week mark, so around 5 days from this point in time. I think that's when we'll kind of get it. Then after that, it'll start to plateau off, taper off, and then come down. We have seen this before when we looked at something like any hyped project. It does have this extended run up, which then kind of does taper off, cap out, and then 3-4 days before reveal starts to trickle off, and then people do want to exit the project before reveal because they think that that's when they're going to make the most money, and then you get a cascade effect on the actual sales itself. So that is a look at Valhalla, all the stats, all the whales, all the prices, and a little bit of a prediction when it comes down to what's going to happen. Now, I know that the prediction, it isn't like a, hey, on this day it's going to hit, but the idea is at least it gives you some time frames and some things to look out for to keep in the back of your mind, which will ensure that you actually make a better decision. So yeah, that's a look at Valhalla, what's actually happening on the market. Now look, everything I say it's not financial advice. You got to do your own research. This is providing you with the information so you can then make those informed decisions. But what you also need to look out for is the fact that the team can come out with an announcement. There could be some VC funding or some whales come in, do some sweeping. Things can happen after I have put this video out there. There are market sentiment, market trends, market shifts that can happen that's outside of Valhalla that can actually affect it. So please be careful in that sense. If you found value in this video, please consider hitting up that subscribe button. While you're down there, also hit up the like button. As always, it's been a pleasure having you with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.